So this video, I entitled it, I do not agree with separating families. And I also don't agree with the killing of Black people, Black children either. And I know there's a lot of talk, a lot of different videos out there. Some people are divided on the issues. And so I'm looking at it from this way. There's a lot of issues that are happening here in the US as a whole. And I'm wondering, do people really notice a lot of the things that are going on seem to be happening all at once? And, I'm noticing that there's even more anger and more frustration and resentment. And so I really don't like to be the bearer of bad news, but I don't see that this is going to get any better. And I really feel like something else is going to happen. Something else is brewing eventually. And I already kind of foresaw this one. I didn't know what it was, but I felt something was coming down the line because there was so much slow dragging on the whole issue surrounding immigration, and it was so much back and forth, in the White House over the issue, and I knew something was going to happen, and I feel like something more is going to happen. There's going to be more events that are going to occur, unfortunately, because the way things are going. And it's sad, but it just seems like this is the way this world is headed. And there's so many different issues happening. The homelessness, people even here in America have a lot of problems. And now you have other countries that have a lot of issues, and they're seeking some kind of refuge. And so much is going on right now, and it's sad because I'm noticing too, there's a lot of violence even within people's cultures. There's what I would say infighting. And I'm going to say this too. I know I have like videos, sometimes fancy videos, and they have all this fancy equipment, and some of it is good and some of it is really mean. And they're not only mean to people who don't look like them, they're mean to people who everywhere. And it just seems like it gets worse and worse and worse. It just doesn't get any better. And I feel like something else is going to happen. It's a very scary time that we're living in. And to fight and bicker and be more divided doesn't make things easier. It doesn't solve the problems. But I know some people won't even hear that. It'll fall on deaf ears. A couple of people that are online spewing even more hate. And, I know some people say, well, people have made bad choices. There's a lot of people that have been making bad choices. Trust me, even here in the US, there's a lot of people that are making bad decisions. And it seems to be in a lot of places, not even just here, but, you know, I'm not that crazy about some of the online YouTubers that have been kind of putting out a lot of anger and a lot of hatred, because it doesn't make people trust one another. It makes people more divided. And so I guess maybe this is just the way I'm feeling. I don't agree with any of it. And I guess this goes back to my whole thing about the trust issues. And so, I've tried to express things in a way where I try to make some sense of some of it, but how can you make sense of people who are all they do is bicker, argue, and fight, and they're all for violence and making more people feel miserable? And what is the saying? Misery loves company. And so I just kind of left it at this right here. Not just ignore the what's on the right is talking about marriage separation. That has nothing to do with the separating of kids and stuff. But I just kind of left it at this because there's all these articles everywhere. And so I was kind of looking today at some of the stuff. I was actually trying to figure out how come I hadn't heard anything about what was going on over there in Mexico. So I tried to look it up to see. I just saw stuff about Cancun and the tourist attraction and all the violence and the shooting and stuff, which I kind of already heard about and knew about. And then from some of the kids that have told me, when they go to travel and visit loved ones in the country, how there's a lot of fighting and killing and things that they've seen. And so I already kind of knew, and then there's bad stuff happening here in the US, people who can't get along with one another. And so it just seems like it's everywhere. That's what I've said before. I feel like something is happening, definitely happening. Something definitely is happening. Something definitely is wrong. And I know some people feel some type of way about some of the entertainers and everything, but beating up women is not cool. It is not cool to beat on females and to think that, that is all right. It is not okay either. I'm not in agreement with that. And that's probably one of the reasons why I just can't see myself being involved with anyone at all. There's so much violence and so much anger and hatred and rage in people nowadays. And I just really don't trust a lot of people. It's like when you meet people, you have to really build the trust between you and other folks. And with what's going on and what I've seen in the world, and a lot of experiences that I've seen from other people, are just that, you become afraid to take risks like that. Um, but anyway, I don't agree with any of it. Really, that's my feelings. And I don't know if I've expressed it. I'm for all lives. I'm for black lives. I'm for all of it. Black lives matter and all lives matter. And I feel like black lives get ignored a lot. And I feel like nobody should be. I guess I'm one of those people that I um I'm for peace for everyone, but I do express some of the things I dislike that some people have done to me and to others. And so it doesn't matter what background or where you're from, if you don't respect other people, then, how do you expect them to treat you? And so that's my feeling, my position. I don't know if anybody disagrees. Maybe some people like to fight. They like hatred. They like anger and killing and all that. I'm not for any of it. And I don't think that it makes us, mature individuals to just keep going back and forth and bickering over things and never coming to any resolution, because some people are going to be divided on things, but if you can agree on some things, or that killing people or separating people or hurting people or trying to do things that are malicious is wrong, it's wrong. But it's also wrong to break laws. Especially if the tables were turned. Now I always usually do this devil's advocate thing. I feel like if it were African people or black people, they might have gotten killed trying to come over here. If they were like, you know, straight up African, they might have just started shooting all of them. And we would have seen a whole nother picture altogether. And so this is where I say that I think black lives get ignored. So I just feel like, too, I've learned this, that a lot of times the very thing that people claim that they dislike is what they end up sometimes becoming. And sometimes they don't even realize it. And I'll explain that part. A lot of times people feel that they've been mistreated, and they feel like they've been, marginalized, or they feel like they've been left behind, or they feel like they've been, treated racially, with racial indifference. But a lot of times you'll find that very thing that people dislike, they tend to mimic it on others. And I think a lot of this happens because people are afraid that they're going to be left behind, or they're going to be more ignored, or the resources are going to be taken away from them. And I cannot kind of understand a lot of that, especially in the Black community, because of the treatment we've gotten. We do feel like a lot of things have been stripped away from us. And I don't know if anybody has read this recently, but I think it was Charleston, South Carolina, somewhere I was reading. They wanted to apologize for their role in slavery, in the slave trade, because there were ports out there where many slaves arrived. And I was reading the author, and she pretty much laid out an apology is not enough. And I really have to be honest, I agree with her. There should be a lot more than giving an apology to African Americans for the role that many have been silent all these decades in their role in slavery. And pretty much, you know, Black people have dealt with the same thing that you just seen on national TV. We are a product of that. That's why, if you don't know it or not, those of you that many don't even know all of who they're related to because of that. And, there could be somebody, some other relatives from our past that we have no knowledge of because of the violent separations that African Americans have endured. And that's where I come in with not only all lives matter, but Black lives are important, and they matter just as much. And I can't back away from that, because I feel like our people built this country with blood, sweat, and tears. And there was a lot of lynching, there was a lot of racial violence, there was a lot of separating and snatching people away. And even in the modern times, you've got mass incarceration. Those are men that are taken away from their families, and women taken away from their families. We have it happening now where our children are being gunned down in broad daylight right before our eyes. And that isn't right. There's no fairness in that. And you have all these people that don't understand our plight. They don't even want to understand it. And that doesn't make it right either. And we need a whole lot more than an apology. I mean, free education on down the line, help with housing. We actually should get, awarded an opportunity to get down payments on homes. If anybody should be granted anything, of all people, it should be African Americans, for what has happened to all of us. And we are the product. We are descendants of people who have been separated and snatched away from homes and parents and families and grandparents and elders. And so I don't know of anybody that should even be saying anything against it, but it's the truth. And we have been duped for decades. People worked, built institutions, and, like they said, built the White House even, and didn't get paid for it. Our payment is what we're dealing with now, is a lot of poverty, a lot of anger, a lot of racial profiling, and now they've resorted to just killing, blatantly, outright killing our people. Every time we walk into the store, we're looked at like we're going to steal something. It's wrong. So if anything is wrong, we're here, we're American citizens, and we get treated as if we freshly just crossed the border ourselves. And that doesn't make it right either. And so then on top of that, from other people that come here and don't do the right things, they also begin to treat us the same way, mean. And so it's not fair. It's not fair. And so it's not fair what they do to other people, but it's not fair what they do to African Americans either. I'm not in agreement with any of it, but I'm not in agreement even more so with what they've been doing with us as people who are Black. So I'm going to end this video, but I really feel like other things are going to occur. I don't feel like it's over with. I also was hearing that they pulled out of the Human Rights Council, the US. So that's a whole nother story in and of itself. But I heard too that some of the people, the other countries that are involved in it, I read about it, but I heard that some of the countries that are involved in it, they actually aren't really treating their citizens well either. And so that's why I say it's not just happening here in the US, it's happening in other places. And so it kind of makes me feel like it's ironic that the US would pull away because, as you see here up on the screen, it shows what they did to these people and pulling them away from the kids, and the kids being pulled away from them rather. And it just seems like something else is brewing. That's all I can say. It just doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. And it feels like something's up. I don't know what, but it's just really sad that all this is happening to a lot of people and affecting a lot of people. And I do believe those kids probably, if they're not getting treatment that is well, which I don't believe so, that there are going to be some traumatized kids behind all of this. So anyway, with that being said, I am going to go like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening.